Hello and welcome to part 6 of JavaScript Introduction. Today we're going to be looking at conditions. Conditions are a way that we can run some code when a certain rule applies. The first type of condition and the most popular is an if statement. An if statement looks like this, where inside the brackets we have our condition. We'll have a look at using different conditions right now. You wouldn't actually put just the word condition, but you'll see that in a couple of minutes. So let's imagine that we had a test score variable, and this was given a value from 0 to 100, and let's just put a default since we don't actually have a way to input a value. Let's just say 50, and we want the score for a student's test to be a fail if it's below 40. We want it to be a pass if it's 40 or above. So the way we can do the 40 or above, we can say if the test score is greater than or equal to 40, then they passed. So I'll just do console log pass. We can chain multiple ifs together using an else if, like that, and then we put another condition in. So let's say if the test score is greater than or equal to 70, then we can say they got a first, like so. And if I do run that, we'll see that I get a pass because it's in this one. And I want a fail to be less than 40. So I could add another else if and say if test score is less than 40, console log fail. But another thing exists that we can chain on to the very end, and it always has to go onto the end, and it's just an else. It doesn't take a condition because it's the default one. It's the else runs if none of the prior conditions happen. So if we change this to 30, it'll come here, it'll say, okay, no, it's not greater than that. It's also not greater than that. So since I didn't run any code before, we need to run the code in the else. So I can console log a fail, and then I'll run that, and we should say fail. Change that again back to 50, and we should say pass. A thing we can do with the conditions in the if statements is use booleans. Let's change this to test score above 40, and then we'll say that is true. So we want, if the test score is above 40, want it to be a pass. So we could do if test score is equal to true, pass, but simply just put in if test score. Since this, I need to change this to test score above 40. So we can say if test score above 40, and that defaults to if test score is true, if test score above 40 is true. So I'll run that, and we'll see it says pass again. We can put an exclamation mark at the start before the boolean, and this inverts any statement after it. So before when we were checking if it's true, we are now checking if it's false. So it should not say anything. Let's change that to there, and then run my code. So I get a fail because it defaults to it, because that condition isn't true and that condition isn't true. So the exclamation mark inverts the statement. We can use equal signs to check if a value is equal to another value. Let's go back to just the test score, like so. So instead of that, we could have equal to 40. So we need to have two equal signs when comparing. So we say if test score is equal to 40, and let's change this to 40, and then we'll run, and we will see pass again. We have to be careful when using these comparisons, because if we had this as a string that is 40, and we run it, we will see that we still get pass. Now why is this? It's because the two equal signs is only comparing the value, it doesn't compare the type. If we want to force it to compare the type, we need a third equal sign. So now if I run that, we should just say fail. But if I change this to 40, and then run it again, we should say pass. So a triple equals checks the type and the value, whereas double equals checks only the value, not the type. It's something to be cautious of. In the same way that we can use an exclamation mark to invert a boolean, we can use it to invert this. So I can say if it is not equal to 40. And the way that this, when it's got 2 here, this is the same as the 3. So it is checking the type. So we can have either this one that checks just the value, and then we can have 2 of them that checks the value and the type. So this is saying not equal to 40. We can check if multiple conditions are true in the same statement. using the AND operators or the OR operators. We write the AND operators using 2 ampersands, like so. So we can say if the test score is equal to 40 and the test score, this doesn't actually make sense doing it, but we'll just do it. Test score divided by 2 is equal to 20. We obviously know that's true, so we'll run that and it'll be a pass. So we can chain multiple statements together. We can use an OR instead. It's 2 of these. This is the button shift and the button next to Z on the keyboard, and that means OR. So this means if this one is true or this one is true, both of them can be true. But if this one is not true and this one is true, it will happen. If this one is true, this one's not true, it will happen. If they're both true, it will happen. And if they're both false, it obviously won't happen. So I'll run that and obviously I'm going to get pass. If I change that to 20, I'll get pass still because test score divided by 2 is still equal to 20. Moving on from if statements, we have switches. So let's remove the ifs. We write a switch by first saying switch, and then we need to switch something. We'll leave that as something for now. And then inside of here, we have different cases. So let's switch the test score, and let's say a case of 40. And then we have the code that we want to do if the case is 40. So log pass. We need that in a string. Log pass. And then we break the line. You have to do this on every case. So then we could have case 50. And let's just say it to 2. And then break the line again. And with a switch, we can have a default, and we want the default to just be, for this example, we'll just have fail. And we don't need to break the default, it automatically does it. What's important to note is you can't use math operators here. I can't say if the case is greater than 40. So this case is only going to run if it's 40. If this is 41 and I run it, I'm just going to get fail. But if I change it to 40, we'll get a pass. So using a switch isn't really good for this kind of scenario. Imagine if we had a number 1 to 7 and we wanted to check the time of the day of the year. We'll do that now. We'll have 1, and we'll be if case is 1, then we can have Sunday. If case is 2, we can have Monday, and then I'll run that and we'll say Sunday, change that to 2, get Monday. So they're very useful for checking one value. They do have their uses. It might not seem obvious right now, but when you're developing things, you will use them. Finally, we have a very useful way of writing a simple if statement. It's called the ternary operator. Let's use the test score as an example. So I'll create a new variable and I'll say passed. And I'll say if the test score is greater than 40, and then we have a question mark. And the first thing we put after the question mark is what we want to return if this is true. So if test score is greater than 40, we want to log that it is a pass. And then we do a colon. In this case is if it's not true. So if test score isn't greater than 40, we'll do a console log of fail, like so. So it just allows us to write a quick and easy one-liner. So if I run this, I'll log the passed, like so, and then run it. It's because I'm also a login here. Let's remove the logs here first, and then run that again, and then we should see fail. If I change test score to 41, we should see pass. So that's it for conditions. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next part.